today's video, I'm going to give you the step-by-step A to Z blueprint on how you can book 200 plus sales calls per month for your agency, B2B offer, info product coaching program, whatever you have. This is going to show you the step-by-step blueprint. And I'm qualified to talk about this today because I run an advertising agency and we manage over 7 figures and spend profitably per month. And we currently work with some household names in the info space, coaching, B2B, even some real estate funds and syndication. We know ads, we know funnels, and some of our clients are booking 400, 500, 600 plus calls per month using the same exact system I'm about to break down. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to be talking about a VSL call funnel because we're trying to book in calls. So this is just a funnel with a VSL, an application, and a calendar on the actual page itself. And we're not doing an opt-in, so there's no name, phone number, and email submission before they get to the VSL page. It's just traffic to a VSL page with an application and a calendar right over to a confirm page. So step number 1 to being able to go launch a system that books 200 plus calls per month is to actually model the freaking system out first. People skip this step. I don't know why. Personally, before we launch any client campaign, any new offer, we always model out 3 scenarios. An underperforming scenario, an average scenario, and an overperforming scenario, and it's on this spreadsheet. So what do? We basically fill out all these blue boxes here, okay? So we'll put the client's, average sales price or AOV, the LTV that they have per client, and then we'll have an underperforming scenario with all these metrics, an average, and an overperforming, and then we'll be able to see LTV ROAS, which is the lifetime value ROAS, and then cash ROAS, which is what I actually scale off of. So this is the actual cash collected based upon this number pitted against the ad spend. But again, you need to sit down and say, okay, with these metrics, do I actually have enough money to spend into this system given these metrics right here to hit my 200 calls, 250, 300 calls, right? In this case here, we're going to be looking at row 17, okay? Total booked calls right here. So for example, even in our overperforming scenario, if you wanted to book 200 sales calls for that month, all right, to hit these ROAS numbers and this revenue and all that based upon this spend, you can't hit it, right? You need to spend more. So let's go to $20,000, right? All right, cool. We're starting to get up there a little bit. Let's go to $30,000, right? There we go. Now we're at 250. So let's drop it to maybe $25,000. There we go. We're starting to get in line. But as you can see, that's an overperforming simulation. That's given a $90 CPM projection, which is still a little bit high to be fair. I go conservative with all these numbers, by the way, and you should too. 2% click-through rate. Page conversion on the application, 5%, book call rate, 75%, show rate, 75, right? So we're assuming those numbers on the front end to get this number here. But, then here, let's say we raise this to 25,000. Let's say we raise the underperforming model to 25,000 and spend as well. This is the average spend per day, by the way, too, so 833. You'd be looking in the average performing scenario, 148, and then 71 for underperforming with these metrics, right? So you just had to model everything out to know, okay, how many calls can I expect? Like whenever we step into a deal, I sometimes have the owner or the sales team say, hey, how many calls can we book? I show them this sheet here. I say, all right, in an underperforming scenario, this is what we're gonna look at. In an average, here's what we're gonna be. This is based on our historical averages. And then our overperforming campaigns that we run, these are the metrics that we see sometimes. Obviously, we're trying to strive for this overperforming initially, but we usually sometimes land in between average and overperforming in the first 30 days. So here's what you can expect. But I always like to have underperforming there too, so they know the floor essentially. I have a bunch of models. So I have webinar funnels, webinar direct to checkout. I have challenge funnels, paid and free. I have low ticket ascension funnels, our high velocity opt-in funnel, and of course the VSL call funnel with an opt-in and with no opt-in. So if you want these financial models, down in the description below, you can enter your name, phone number, email, and I'll send this right over to you. But anyways, let's dive into the next part of the video. So after you've modeled out these 3 scenarios and you know exactly how much money you need to put into ads to get X amount of calls booked, and you know what metrics you need to hit along the way in the funnel, like show rate, close rate, CPM, click-through rate, all that fun stuff. The next thing is to start on the ad level. So what do you do on the ad level? When we're trying to rapidly scale an account, we need to be creative testing intelligently, and we need to be testing a lot of different ad angles and messaging buckets in a very structured and intelligent way. How do we do that? So first is we have to sit here and we have to think about our target prospects' desires and their pain points, okay? And within these 2 buckets, what are the real-time scenarios that they are dealing with? What are they dealing with right now? What desires do they have right freaking now? What pain points do they have right freaking now? What are they struggling with right freaking now? Very contextual situations we want, okay? A bad example of an ad is, are your ads not making money, right? That's super broad. That literally, yes, it's a real-time scenario someone's in, but it's super broad. It tells me absolutely nothing, okay? It won't grab any attention. It's not specific enough. We want to be very specific with the ads that we write and the copy that we use across the entire funnel, especially in our front-end creatives. So something more contextual that we can test as a messaging bucket or an ad angle is like, hey, are you getting a bunch of people to book in calls to your ads, but they show up unqualified, not warmed up, and you have just terrible show rates and thus terrible ROAS? That's a very contextual situation right there. So what we want to do initially, especially as we're trying to scale spend, is come up with anywhere from 3 to 5 messaging buckets. Now I won't go too deep in this video about messaging buckets because I've talked about this in our creative testing video, which you can watch right here. It's also linked in the description below. But essentially we want to come up with 3 different messaging buckets or ad angles and ad ideas, which are based upon desires and pain points that our prospects actually have right now. So from there, once we come up with these buckets, let's just say I'm advertising on behalf of us as an ad agency. You know, the first could be bad lead quality. The second could be, you know, low show rates. And the third can be just like hiring bad agencies, right? So these are 3 different messaging buckets that we can do that we're going to test. And then what we do from there is we're going to create 3 to 5 ads within each bucket. Okay, so 3 to 5 individual ads. So 3 to 5 different ways to articulate having bad lead quality, low show rates, and bad agencies in this case. And then from there, that's what we're going to run in our campaigns. And then a quick thing on campaign structure, it doesn't quite matter if you run CBO or ABO. Personally, what we like to do is we go CBO, we'll have 1 to 3 ad sets in here. So we'll do like broad, we'll do lookalike, and we'll do an interest stack, and then we'll have dynamic creative. And usually, depending on the spend, I'm putting anywhere from 2 or 3 of these ads into each dynamic creative set and letting them run and then see which one essentially is the winner. And I keep the other ones on reserve to launch later if we need to combat ad fatigue or just want to test more. But that's pretty much what I do for that. You could also just do, if you want to, for example, if you know that broad targeting is the only thing that actually works for your account, then you can just rapidly test a bunch of different creatives with only using broad on each of these ad sets. So for example, you can do like 3 ad sets here. And then on the creative level, you can put each messaging bucket. So like you could put the messaging bucket 1 within this ad set, running it to a broad audience. And this will be all of the bad lead quality ads. This one here will be all of the low show rate ads. You know, and this one in here will be all of the bad agencies ads. And you essentially just see which one wins at that point, which one gets the most spend, the best cost per result, all that stuff. Again, not going to go deep into creative testing in this video, but that's another strategy that you can do. That is something I would run when I already know over time that, okay, broad is the only thing that's really hitting in my account, or this interest stack is the only thing that's really hitting in my account, or this lookalike audience, etc. Once you basically just have a proven audience and you really want to run a bunch of creatives into that audience to see which one hits and test these messaging buckets a lot faster, that's what I would do right there. So after modeling it out, that's what we need to do. We need to actually sit down and create these messaging buckets that we're going to test. Most people, when they start to launch ads, they don't actually create these big variants in messaging buckets. They essentially just like run a bunch of generic ads that all sound the same and don't intelligently and strategically test different ad angles. So therefore, they don't find that big ad angle and hook that resonates with a lot of people and they can actually scale fast to, right? One of our clients, GoFunnels, for example, we were testing a ton of messaging buckets for him in the same exact way, and we found an angle that really resonated and freaking scaled like crazy, okay? Got a 7x ROAS, it's still scaling, it's printing qualified calls for 60 bucks right now, it's insane. At a certain point in time, it was at $35, and after testing a bunch of different ad angles, we found that one that hit, which was, hey, if you're using GHL, you're probably not using it properly. You're probably overwhelmed and confused, so therefore you're not making enough revenue or making as much revenue as you could using the tools GHL has. We tested so much. We tested your funnel is broken. We tested your landing page is broken. We tested your backend automations are broken. All this crazy stuff. and we landed on that angle because we tested a bunch of these different buckets all at once, saw that that one hit, and then we just scaled off of that one. So once you find the winning messaging bucket that hits, you need to continuously iterate and iterate and iterate and iterate off that one and just squeeze the life out of that angle. All right, and the next section is actually having the right funnel and landing page, okay? People, a lot of the time, will throw up some templated, garbage-looking landing page, okay? Some absolute just dog water stuff. And what it looks like is, you know, some white background, templated, scammy-looking, all-caps font stuff, okay? We don't like to do that. We like to make nice, custom, branded landing pages. You can see a couple of them right here in this video. And they just look nice, they build trust, they grab attention, and more importantly, the copy is structured in a way that as somebody skims through the page, they're able to pull different pieces of key information easily, right? It's the scroll test. If you're able to scroll for 10 to 15 seconds through a page, and in that 10 to 15 seconds, you can quickly decipher the value benefits of the offer, the pain points that they're trying to hit, their credibility and their experience and everything like that, even what the offer is, you won, okay? That's what you need to do. All right, so in the next section is the actual funnel and landing page that you're driving traffic to. So what we like to do on the landing pages is, first we kind of launch this with this structure. So we launch with the main headline, we have our VSL, we either do a pop-up for the application, and this is a full screen mobile pop-up, by the way, so if you're using Typeform, go into the settings, turn on the full screen on mobile option. The conversions are way better, trust me. Or we'll just embed the application right here. But we like to use a Typeform and Calendly combination, so at the end of the actual application, it goes right into the calendar, so there's no drop-off. And then from there, we like to do a problem section here, a solution section here, case studies, and then a bunch of FAQs. Sometimes as well, we'll add in like an R process section right here, but usually that's what we launch with as a control. Then as we're split testing, maybe we'll remove all this stuff and we'll just do maybe the case studies under the application, or we'll move everything and just have the application, the VSL, et cetera, et cetera. That's just like split test, but usually we launch the same funnels with the same control, and this is kind of how the page looks. And by the way, our pages that we build are very nice and custom branded, okay? We don't want some generic looking slop that looks like you just threw it together in GHL and ClickFunnels and just slapped a bunch of all uppercase text on there. Okay, no. You want them to be very custom branded. When you show up on a page, it looks very nice, clean, and custom branded with great colors that match the logo and all this stuff. You don't have to go crazy with the design, but you want it to build trust. You want people to land in there and be like, ah, this looks nice. This doesn't look like a freaking scam. Also, another thing too, when you have a lot of copy on your landing page like this, you want it to pass what's called the scroll test. So if I look at a page and I scroll for 10 seconds to 15 seconds on the page, I should be able to pick up very fast on the pain points that the person's trying to hit. I should feel like I'm at home on the page. I understand everything. I understand their offer. I understand the value benefits. And I also clearly see their experience level through the case studies and other things that they articulate about their experience level. So that's where having things like proper headlines, bold, underline stuff. We love using the highlight feature in different big text blocks, having images, things like that on the page that help you get those key points quickly as you just scroll through the page fast, because most people are not going to sit there and scroll very slowly and read every word and every line and everything and look at every image, right? They're not going to do that. They're going to land on the page, scroll for 10 to 15 seconds max, even less than that most of the time, like 5 seconds, see if it's for them, and they're going to either continue forward or they're going to bounce. So you want to basically allow them to consume all the information that you want them to consume quickly just by scrolling. And that's by structuring your content on the page properly, right? Using bolds, using different italics, highlights, again, these different sections, like breaking things up into sections, just making it look very clean and easy to read is very, very key and crucial. And now another note on your funnel as well is pixel conditioning. So we only want to report qualified prospects back to the ad platform. If you're trying to really scale up to a point where you can book 200, 300, 400 calls per month, you need to be booking qualified calls only and optimizing around qualified calls, because guess what? If you don't get qualified people, you're not going to get sales. If you don't get sales, you can't run ads. So you want to get rid of poor people and broke people and unqualified leads as best as you can in the application and optimize only around qualified prospects. So how do we do that? right? We have all of our ads here on the front end, okay? Then we drive them over to our funnel, which our application on here will send people down one of two paths, okay? It's gonna send them down the DQ path or the qualified path. The qualified path, they're able to schedule. The DQ path, they are not able to schedule unless you wanna drop them to a setter or something like that, or a new rep to get them some calls on the calendar a little bit, or you wanna send them into some like low ticket liquidation funnel or something like that. You can also do that down here. But overall, this does not report back into the ad platform unless you have like a conversion API set up later that says, okay, cool, somebody was DQ'd and they booked on like a setter calendar here, and the setter actually did mark them as qualified in the CRM. Like, okay, cool. Then they can report as a schedule back through the conversion API into the actual ad platform there. That's the only time that we would do that, is if somebody actually manually talked to one of these leads that were DQ'd initially through our application process, and they turned out to be an SQL or a sales qualified lead, then we'd feed them through the conversion API and all that stuff so they can report back. But again, we just want qualified leads to report back. So if they were qualified here, right, they schedule in, they go to the confirm page that has a standard event code. We optimize around schedule 99% of the time. Sometimes we'll do some split tests for like submit application, complete registration and stuff. Sometimes we'll have to use custom events on some accounts. But anyways, this reports back into the ad platform here, and we get more of these people. So as you scale spend, you want to be scaling off of qualified calls. Getting 300 mixed calls, like half qualified, half unqualified, is garbage because you're not actually going to close the unqualified ones. You want to have an 80% plus qualified rate on the calls. That's what we aim for, 80% plus. Then the next section, right? Again, as we're booking in 200 to 300 plus calls, even below that, and you're trying to scale up to that 200, 300 call mark, you have to be closing freaking deals. So how do you close deals from cold traffic? Great question. Actually implementing a few things on the back end after somebody books to help them do research on you, educate them, nurture them, and turn them essentially into a warm lead before the actual sales call. So how do you do that? We do that through email flows on the back end after they actually book a call, content remarketing, and also sales process optimizations. Okay, so on the email flow side, we deliver our prospects before they actually show up to the sales call, value-dense emails that are there to educate, help the prospect do research on the offer, the company, all that stuff. Sometimes we'll send out literally like a research deck, like, hey, here's everything you need to know about our company. Here are some past clients you can reach out to. Here's like all of our team members, so you know that, hey, we're not just some like small shop doing this out of our mom's basement or something. Then we'll also write emails around different objections we get, common questions we get, all that fun stuff. And of course, the confirmation page too up here has a lot of those elements on there as well, and is structured in that way to rapidly help the prospect do research right after they booked a call, because that's all you're trying to do. In that window before when somebody books and when the call occurs, this is the window that really matters and helps drive conversions. This is where you want to help them do research and ultimately just build up trust with you guys. So that's what we're doing with our email flows. We're giving just a ton of value. We're handling objections. We're answering questions that we get all the time. We're showing some case studies, but not like generic showing case studies, right? We're actually like breaking down the case studies and the methodology behind it, almost like it's a lesson. We're giving research decks. We're giving different trust assets and sales assets. All, again, just trying to speed up the research process for our prospect, get them to know, like, and trust us before the sales call. And then content remarketing rate here too is we're doing the same thing. We're trying to give value, and we're just trying to like get in front of them as much as we possibly can before the actual sales call. So this is where we'll serve up organic content to the prospects before the sales call after they book in through a custom audience through Facebook. This works really well to indoctrinate them into your way of thinking. So basically you serve them some of your top performing organic content pieces, or you create structured pieces of content that answer objections, that answer questions, pre-handle objections, helps them do their research, gives a bunch of value, entertains them, stuff like that, right? You want to just basically speed run that process of getting them to consume content from you and just getting them to latch onto your brand quickly. That's what we do with content remarketing. We serve a high volume of these to them naturally in feed through a custom audience before the actual sales call. Then finally, the sales process optimization. So, what are your setters actually saying to the prospects before the sales call? Are they just trying to like qualify them? Or are they actually trying to help them do research, dig into some pain points, be of service to them? I love to tell our setters that, hey, you guys are like lead nurture specialists. You're not really setters, okay? Most setting programs just teach if they don't have X revenue and this and this and this, like just get them off the phone. We don't like to do that. We don't open up with, hey, how much revenue do you have? Okay, cool. How much money do you have? Okay, cool. Do you have $5,000 to invest in this program? No? Okay, cool. Bye. Peace. Like, we don't like to do that. We like to actually have a human conversation with them and actually nurture them up. We also love using, and I'll switch the color here. Actually, I'm already on blue, is the blue text. So we love doing blue text. You can do it from an iPhone, or you can hop onto one of our client softwares, Link, L-I-N-Q. Shout out to those guys over there, scaling rapidly, but Link to basically send blue text from your CRM. Love them. Shameless plug. Love them. Great guys. But anyways, you're going to actually have double the responses, even sometimes 3 to 4x the responses in some client accounts that we see. Sending blue text versus green text, I know it's crazy, but it just is what it is. So what are the setters saying? And also, what are the setters sending prospects before the sales call? They should be taking the application questions that they had up here and the stuff that they deciphered from the application and sending them custom assets. Now, what we like to do with our clients is create a vault of different trust assets and sales assets to send people based upon the different scenarios, pain points, desires, and stuff that we decipher that they have in their application, and we send those to them. So it could be a document breaking down, hey, you're at this current ad spend level, you're between $100 to $300. Here's exactly what we do to scale some companies in your position here. And these are probably some of the bottlenecks that you have based upon what I saw your application told us about. And from there, we send them a document on how to break those bottlenecks. Let's say, for example, again, I'm an advertising agency, and in the application, I have a question that says, okay, how much are you spending on ads? $100 to $300 a day. Let's just say that's a question, right? And say we have a prospect that comes through, and that's what they answered. And they also said that lead quality is a big issue from scaling from $300 to $500, $1,000, etc. What we want to do is have the setters send something very contextual. So we create a bunch of different custom assets for different scenarios and different answers that are inside of the application that people could basically answer. So what we do is we create for our clients a bunch of different custom assets that the setters can send out based upon different application questions and combinations with that. And in this case, right, we have a lead that can't scale past $100 to $300 a day in spend. They're dealing with lead quality. So what should the setter reach out with? They should say, hey, saw that you really just can't get past that, $100 to $300 a day barrier and stuff. We have a lot of clients with that. Here's a whole deck and Gamma Doc and video that Evan made that basically breaks down how you can get past that level. And also it has a case study in there too showing, we took this company from $250 a day in spend up to $1,000 a day in 45 days just by implementing this system and all this stuff in this document. Where can I send that over to? And then also, you say, oh yeah, also by the way, I saw you're dealing with lead quality. Here's a video Evan put out that solves the lead quality issue just by changing around some of the messaging in your ads and the funnels and stuff like that. And also, here's a document on pixel conditioning. You see how different that is than just generic follow-up? It's actually taking the application questions over here and making contextual follow-up over here in the sales process. That's what makes a good sales process. And that's what's going to get people to show up to the calls and buy. So guess what? You can scale spend to hit this 300, 200 calls mark, okay? You need to be able to have a good sales process that gets people to show up to calls and actually show up warm, ready to buy and close so you can put more money into the freaking system and scale. And that's basically it right there, okay? That is the full system that you need to essentially scale up your ads to book 200, 300, 400 plus calls per month. Everyone overcomplicates it, okay? That's pretty much what you need right there. What you need to do, though, along the way is also understand bottleneck analysis. So you need to look at those financial models that you had and also just look at your current stats across your full funnel, right? Every single week, you should be looking at everything from click to close. So, you should be looking at all the main metrics every single week from click to close, right? So what is the click-through rate? I use unique click-through rate. CPMs, what's my application percentage, which is like the page conversion percentage, so unique page views, divided by the amount of applications you have. Booking rate, cost per call, show rate, qualified rate, close rate, AOV, right? You should be looking at all these and you just find which metric here is the bottleneck, what's broken in the system, and then you need to create an action plan for that week to solve that bottleneck. So basically you try to 2, 3, 4x that specific metric. That's essentially what you need to do every single week to scale. So you launch ads and you're just continuously improving the system based upon data right here. That's what you're doing. So if you have any questions on this, drop me a message on Instagram or Twitter at @EvanSeech. You can also drop it down in the comments below and I'll reply to you. And if you want us to scale your ads for you, completely done for you, there's a link down in the description below that you can click on, fill out a quick application, tell me a little bit more about your business, and you can also see our sales process, by the way, and our back-end email flows, so you can get some inspiration on that. But you funnel hackers, back the fuck away, get away from me. I don't want any funnel hackers. But anyways, if you want us to scale your ads, links in the description below. Drop a follow. We'll be dropping some more tips on how to scale your ads up from that couple $100 a day range all the way into the $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 plus per day range. See you on that.